Sinkholes, terrifying openings that can swallow people, cars, and even houses in an instant. Here are 10 shocking cases of sinkhole deaths that will leave you with nightmares. Number 10. The bedroom sinkhole. On the night of February 28, 2013, 37-year-old Jeff Bush was sleeping in his bedroom in Tampa, Florida, when the earth underneath him suddenly opened up. As he was sucked into the ground together with his bed, he screamed out loud, and his younger brother, Jeremy, came running in to help. Jeremy was surprised to find a big hole where the floor should have been, with the top of his brother's bed the only thing visible. He jumped into the rubble to find his brother, who could still be heard screaming. The earth was still dangerously going down, and Jeremy would have been swallowed in as well if a police officer who arrived at the scene did not pull him out. The hole was found to be 20 feet wide, and rescuers searched a whole day for Jeff before giving up. His body was never recovered. 5 other family members were lucky enough to escape unharmed, and the house had to be demolished. Because of the unsafe grounds, the county had neighbors around the house leave their homes as well. The hole was filled in and left as a vacant lot surrounded by a metal fence. 2 years later, in August 2015, a new 17-foot wide sinkhole appeared again at the exact location where Jeff Bush and his entire bedroom were swallowed. That particular area in Tampa, Florida is well known for sinkholes, with over 500 recorded cases over the past 6 decades. Number 9. The Taiwanese street sinkhole. In the middle of 2012, a strong tropical cyclone known as Typhoon Saola had been affecting several countries in the Far East. The typhoon reportedly triggered floods and sinkholes across China and Taiwan, killing several people. A recording from a CCTV camera during that time showed the last moments of a man before he was swallowed by a sinkhole in the streets of Taipei. The unidentified Taiwanese man was seen walking somewhere in Sanxia district near Sansha Temple when he, along with the ground he was walking on, suddenly disappeared from view. A rescue attempt was made, but according to reports, the man later died of his heavy injuries. Number 8. The Canadian family of 4. In 2010, Richard Prefontaine, his wife Lynn, and their 2 daughters, Anais and Emily, were all together at home in Montreal, sitting in the basement family room. They were watching TV, cheering for their ice hockey team, the Montreal Canadiens, in a Stanley Cup match when disaster struck. Without warning, their house was suddenly swallowed by a gaping sinkhole. Quebec's emergency services arrived at the scene, only to find that the landslide had tore a massive hole 4 times the size of a football field. After hours of digging through the soil and rubble, they found the bodies of all 4 Prefontaine family members lying close to one another near the couch. The family dog was the only survivor. Apart from the house, the hole also swallowed 3 cars and 1 stretch of concrete road and forced the evacuation of 5 other homes in the town. According to geologists, the tragic incident most likely occurred due to liquefaction of clay dirt where the home was built, causing its slope to collapse and the land to slide. Number 7. The Texas Road Sinkhole. In December 2016, Dora Linda Nishihara, an off-duty sheriff's deputy, was driving her car in San Antonio, Texas, when she suddenly plunged into a massive sinkhole in the middle of the road. Another car behind her followed suit, falling into the hole, which was filled with 12 feet of water. Bystanders managed to rescue the passenger from the second car, but not Nishihara. Her car was upside down and totally submerged in water, and by the time rescuers arrived, it had turned into a recovery mission instead of a rescue mission. It was a difficult task, as the unstable hole was collapsing around them, and the sewer water was moving rapidly. A crane had to be used to lift the car out of the street-wide hole, with Nishihara's body inside. According to utility officials, the sinkhole was the result of burst sewer pipes caused by heavy rain. Number 6. The Crimean Road Sinkhole. One night in September 2014, a 26 feet wide sinkhole suddenly appeared in the middle of the highway near the Crimean capital of Sinkhole. As the ground below the road caved in, electric cables were also ripped out, cutting off power to the roadway lights. Ibril Iskandarov and his family were the unfortunate ones to stumble into the sinkhole in the dark of the night. The car plunged down 6 meters into the pit, killing Iskandarov, his wife, their 3 children, and a family friend. They all died almost instantly after suffering massive injuries. The only survivors who rescue workers managed to save out of the 8 people in the car were the 2 young children of Iskandarov's family friend. One of them, a 1-year-old baby, suffered a traumatic brain injury and was comatose, while the other, a 12-year-old girl, suffered multiple bone fractures. Number 5. The Arizona farm worker. Guadalupe Gomez Nila was an irrigation worker at a farm in Arizona. One day, in February 2016, the 60-year-old drove his pickup truck to the water canal and dropped the vehicle's tailgate. At that moment, the earth suddenly opened up and swallowed Nila whole, leaving behind his truck. A woman who was in her garden nearby saw Nila disappearing into the ground. She went to get help, and when authorities arrived at the scene, they found a large sinkhole that was already filled with rushing water. Rescue efforts went on for about 6 hours before Nila's body was located. Because of all the water and loose dirt, he had either drowned or suffocated. Number 4. The gopher-induced sinkhole. On the early morning hours of July 14, 2012, 32-year-old Sonia Lopez was on her way to a convenience store in Melba, Idaho, where she worked. Unfortunately, she never made it to work, as she unexpectedly crashed into a sinkhole in the middle of the road. She was not wearing her seatbelt and was found dead an hour later by a deputy. Her car was found in a 15-foot wide, 40-foot long crater caused by flowing irrigation water that had weakened the earth underneath the road. Investigations revealed that the culprits were gophers who had been leaving behind burrowing tunnels that allowed the irrigation water to flow through. Number 3. Marine falls to death while hunting. Curtis Powelson was an active-duty Marine living with his wife and child in Fort Leonard Wood, a U.S. Army base in the Missouri Ozarks. One Monday evening on September 17, 2013, he went bow hunting in his backyard. He managed to track down a deer and shot it from a distance. He then called his wife to tell her the news and said that he would be coming home shortly. But Curtis did not come home, and that was the last time his wife ever heard his voice. That night, she alerted authorities of her husband's disappearance, and after hours of searching, they eventually found the body of a 31-year-old Marine at the bottom of a 70-foot unmarked sinkhole. He had apparently fallen to his death. No one had expected that such a deep sinkhole existed in the first place, and several officials came dangerously close to falling into the pit themselves. The hole, which was described as being as deep as a tall tree, was unusually cylindrical in shape and is believed to have opened up during heavy rains the month before the incident. The walls were freshly caved in, and it was not part of a cave system. No one knew of its existence. Because of its enormous size, authorities opted to not fill the pit, but instead just place markers around it. Number 2. The Mount Baldy Sinkholes. At the southern edge of Lake Michigan lies Mount Baldy, a 37-meter tall sand dune. After years of visitors wearing away the grass holding it together, the entire dune began to move little by little due to the wind. Because of that, Mount Baldy is advertised as a living sand dune that moves a meter or two every year. Since 2013, people began noticing another bizarre geological phenomenon. In July that year, while hiking Mount Baldy with his father, 6-year-old Nathan Wassner fell into a 3-meter hole that suddenly opened up beneath him. His father, who was walking ahead, turned back, only to find a perfectly circular 1-foot wide hole in the sand. He could hear Nathan's terrified voice yelling from underneath him, and he and his friend furiously tried digging with their hands. But then, the sand collapsed, and the hole, together with Nathan, had disappeared instantly. Rescue workers were called, and for hours they dug the sands, hoping to find Nathan. The young boy's limp body was eventually uncovered after 4 hours. At first, nearly everyone believed he was dead. He was pulseless, and his skin was cold. But as paramedics carried him away, Nathan suddenly started moving and gasping for air. Miraculously, the boy survived his near-death experience after being remained buried alive for over 4 hours. The following month, a second sinkhole appeared. It is considered strange, as the air pockets are supposed to be filled immediately by the surrounding sand. In 2016, experts concluded that the sinkholes are caused by the burial of trees that eventually decayed, leaving behind what is called a dune decomposition chimney. Mount Baldy has been closed to the public ever since the incident. Number 1. The massive Guatemala City sinkholes. In 2007, a 100-meter deep sinkhole was formed in the middle of Guatemala City due to ruptures from underground sewage pipes. The escaped fluid had been slowly eroding the structures that held the ground together and made worse with heavy rains that caused rainwater to percolate into the ground. The sinkhole collapsed suddenly on February 23rd, forming a massive, deep, circular hole with vertical walls. The tragedy happened in a poor neighborhood, killing 5 people and forcing thousands of others to be evacuated. 3 years later, Guatemala City witnessed an even more tragic sinkhole, which also occurred due to a combination of leaked sewer pipes and stormwater. Tropical Storm Agatha had brought widespread floods to Central America, while lax city zoning and building regulations resulted in poor pipe maintenance. On top of that, the nearby Pacaya volcano had just recently erupted 3 days earlier, further rupturing the pipes. When the ground collapsed suddenly on May 30th, 2010, it took with it a 3-story factory, along with a security guard and surrounding electric poles. At least 15 people were killed, and hundreds more had their lives put at risk.
Ever since the Somali Civil War entered its second phase in the beginning of the 21st century, pirate activities off the coast of Somalia have been a threat to international shipping. It initially began when groups of Somali fishermen armed themselves to fend off foreign boats that illegally fished and dumped toxic waste in their waters.